William Robinson of viralhare.com, speaking with Mr. Scott Bruno about his work here at Compalooza 2018. And now, if you would, sir, please kind of introduce the two series so far you are working on and what they're about.
Sure, thank you very much. So the first series that I got to work on, it's called Pantheon, and the central character is Ulysses. Ulysses has been granted immortality by the gods, but it comes at a price, and that price is he has to be the gopher to the gods. So he has to do everything from fix Zeus's DVR to clean up family messes, and ultimately he finds himself in the middle of a murder mystery. Somebody's trying to kill the gods off before it's too late. The second series that I've most recently been working on is called Texas Tall Tales, featuring a gentleman by the name of Rick Murray, biker dude. And the whole premise is Rick Murray thinks he's the biggest, baddest, meanest biker there is in the hill country of Texas. But the reality is he doesn't own a motorcycle, and he doesn't belong to a motorcycle club. He ultimately gets into these wacky adventures, fighting aliens and monsters, and really kind of going after all those sci-fi movie memes and kicks that I liked as a kid. And so it's kind of my love letter to both the state of Texas as well as to 50s sci-fi. So that's kind of my kick on that.
Now, both of these types of books sound like they deal with either local mythology for Texas or greater mythology from the Greeks. What is that like a kind of thing that appeals to you as a creator, the kind of stories, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think any type of mythology and mythos is part of the human experience. We all have our heroes. We all have our events that define us either as a culture or an individual. And so, yeah, absolutely. You know, Greek mythology is kind of the foundation of a lot of Western civilization and the cornerstone for where we get our notion of superheroes in many respects. And then for Texas is a larger-than-life state, and so you need a larger-than-life character to portray that type of essence that we all feel that we're native Texans. So I always say I'm a native Texan. It's the greatest state in the greatest country, and I live in the greatest city in that greatest state. So it's always a reflection of that mythos.
Right. Now, were there books when you were younger you read that kind of inspired these ideas, comics-wise, or were you a superheroes kid?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. So growing up in the 80s and the early 90s, obviously I've got my influences from Marvel and the X-Men and the whole Jim Lee and Mark Silvestri and pre and during Image era. So that actually has influenced me a great deal as far as comics as a medium and ability to tell stories. But then again, you know, I grew up reading the mythology of the Greeks, and also just growing up reading things like Stephen King and other parts that really define our culture as far as movies. So if you grew up in the 80s, you know, we didn't have a plethora of cable channels to deal with, so we're watching the old 50s B movies as well as your kind of standard slapstick fare, whether it's the Three Stooges or Abbott and Costello. So those also have as much bearing in my kind of my vernacular of pop culture as anything else.
Thank you. So is there something more after Texas Tall Tales that you're working on, or is right now these two books kind of where you want to stay for now to keep them going?
Yeah, so Pantheon is a collaboration I have with a writer by the name of Josh Deitch, and so it's partly the continuation of that series is dependent upon him as well. As far as Texas Tall Tales, that's my full own creation, and right now I'm pretty much set and continuing on in expanding that mythos with Rick Murray. He's a character that I want to explore in greater depth, and the reason why is I view Rick Murray as kind of the embodiment of the foolish everyman, and in some ways I think he's an id of myself. So you kind of read some of the stupidity that he does, and I feel like sometimes I'm mixed up into that those situations in my own life.
So like a really confused MacGyver thinks he's a biker.
Exactly, and that's me to a T.
This is a common question you've asked a lot to people that do a lot of their own work, but is it easier when you're writing to hit panel to panel when you have your own script to think of, or to change things as you want to, or is it make you more maybe self-critical because you're the way you look at everything because all your own work?
No, I think that's an excellent question. So, if you want to look at kind of what Will Eisner's thoughts were on the matter, his whole thoughts on comic book creating is the writer and the artist have to be one. And so his aspect was really, in order to effectively tell that story, the artist and writer got to have to be the same person. I don't necessarily believe that to be the case because you can collaborate, but it takes more effort. Right. Whereas if I'm both writing and doing the artwork, I know exactly what I want on that page, and I know exactly what the interpretation is going to be from panel to panel. With the collaboration, there's always some doubt, if you will, as to capturing the pure essence of what the writer's trying to get to, because I've got my own interpretation, and then the writer may have his or her own. So it's interesting. They're just two distinct ways of working. Both are valid, but for me, I would say being the writer and the artist lends itself to an easier time of interpreting into the final product.
Right. Okay, Mr. Reynolds, thank you so much for your time. I hope the rest of the show goes well.
All right, thank you.